so quiet on the set. Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome. You are, you are joining the Republic Room for your next installment with Jason and Mason. Jason. With Chester and Mason for Sunday, April 14th. Oh my God, what a hot mess.
You guys, we're having a lot of fun here with this, you guys, and we've been on this call for a little while already discussing what we're going to do. So, I think this just indicates the level of fun that we're having doing this for you guys. To be honest.
All right, let me try that again. Welcome, everybody. It's your next installment of the Republic Room with Mason and Jester. It's Sunday, April 14th. And today, the gentlemen are going to take us down a rabbit hole. We're going to go over some judicial names versus legal names and how to maintain your sovereignty. So, if you don't mind, Jester, you want to throw it over to Mason and let's get this ball rolling.
I'm ready to rock and roll you, Mason, because she didn't drop the F-bomb so it looks like we're going to get through on this one. So here we go.
Okay. All right.
I'm telling you guys, we've been having some fun. All right, so we're going to talk about names a little bit because this is kind of cool. If you guys are following along on the website that we gave you, and if you don't know about that by now, it's USA versus US .info. We're down to under subjects and sovereigns. We're still carrying through. We should finish that up today, and then we're going to do some really cool stuff that Mason is chomping at the bit to do about land patents and things like that. So, without further ado, I'd like to let him jump in on the legal names, judicial names, and how this has to do with, caps and what you're doing and how you're signing things and what you're really doing to yourself by not knowing what you're doing to yourself. So there you go. Mason, did I say it right?
Yeah, it's close enough. The name is kind of important, only from the standpoint of whether you understand what you are in this system and how you've been identifying yourself. Most people understand when you say your surname, and of course that's a funny acronym for your last name, which belongs to the crown. So you want to separate that in a certain way when you're doing your signatures. And by the way, the first part of this whole exercise is to pay attention to all of the contracts that you've engaged with the system. I don't care if it's city, county, state, federal, doesn't matter. There isn't a single document that you're ever going to have your hands on with your name on it, including the birth certificates starting in about 1950 time frame, that are all in all uppercase. That's corporate entity. That's how they identify a corporation without even looking at what it says. If it's all uppercase, it's automatically corporation. And I had an occasion to ask a person in a bank once, I said, how come I can't get my checks done in upper lower case? And they said, oh, well, it's just easier. We just put it on the cap lock, and it's quicker. And I'm like, come on. You guys don't do anything by accident. And you don't make anything that is easily understood, because I already knew where the banking system was. I said, so why can't you give it to me the way I want it? Well, that's just our rules. You can't, we're going to put your names in all uppercase on your checks, whether you like it or not. So, okay, whatever. But when I signed the check, I always identified according to the name proper, which is your first name. And by the way, you're scripting this, so you're not going to print this. I mean, you can if you want, but whatever. So your first name, signature, John, for instance, or Jane, spelled out with a dash if you got a middle name. And if it's your whole name and it's on your birth certificate, you want to spell out your whole name with a dash between your first and second. Your middle name is different than the first name, but it shows that it's part of your real name. The last name, that's your Mason, or that's the Mason, haha. The last name, you want to separate that with a colon. So put a colon in there between your middle and your last name. So That's your lawful, not legal, that's your lawful, correct English pronunciated with the proper divisions between your first name, your middle name, and the surname, which belongs to the crown. That's why it's called the surname. Huh. So everything you sign in your life, I don't care what it is, any legal contract, there's also a little acronym that you might want to put behind it with a UD. Most people don't know what that means, but it's under duress. And if you look up the definition of under duress, you'll find out that negates the liabilities that may go along with the document you're signing. And if there's anything in that document that violates your rights, you eliminated that by putting, under duress. That's what that means. Like your driver's license, application, social, I don't care what it is. Sign your checks that way, all of it, because they're not going to give you lawful money for it. So and your passport. When you get your passport, you may look on it, it'll say U.S. citizen or national on there. And some people think that word national gets you through the door too, but not technically. So make sure you sign it, all your stuff that way. And that way you're not technically held liable to anything that's in the document or the contract you may have signed. So that's the difference between your lawful, correct, and your corporate name. But remember, like I said, every contract you've ever signed is in corporate. So, all right. Now,
for future
like to go
use. Well, I just want to point out this is for future use, and if you like to start getting out of the system at this point in time, then doing this, there's no repercussions for signing that way. I mean, most people won't even understand why you're doing it, quite frankly. But in order to protect yourself,
won't.
Yeah, and they're not going to care, quite frankly, as long as the check is signed, right? So now it takes one thing. Obviously, if you get into a contract to, I don't know, to buy something, a car or a house or something like that, then it's going to be a lot more important because that just leaves you out of the contract that they're trying to stick you in, right, Mason?
Yeah, and there's little things that go along with certain documents you sign, like your mortgage agreements or your purchasing a vehicle or stuff like that, that are important only from the standpoint of what you do about the title of it, and we're not going to go that way at this time. But it's a signature on whatever you're signing, okay, to start with.
Especially if it's in a contractual relation, not if you're buying widgets at the Lowe's or something.
No,
that's not going to really. Nobody cares about that. This is more of a something a little bit more magnitude where you're making a contract for something, right?
It would also include if you got a ticket. Same thing.
Yeah, good point there. Now that's a good point.
Yeah, put your correct signature and the UD behind it, and then at some point, whether you know it now or not, you may learn about your exemption in that area. So that's all coming.
We might go there. We got a long way to go.
Not
we got
a
lot
problem.
Guys, absolutely. So, if you go down through here and you go to the next box, we're talking about maintaining sovereignty. And this is kind of some freaky stuff because U.S. citizens were declared enemies of the U.S. by FDR on the executive order and all that, but right, 1933 and all that, right? So I don't know if you'd like to touch on any of that. Quite frankly, you can read it here, but I think if you said yes, so I'm going to let you do it. There you go. Have at it.
There's one little addendum to the birth certificate scenario, and I know this from a personal experience I had. I was on my way down to the Secretary of State's office to get an apostille. In case you may not understand what that is, that's a notary across sovereign lines. So we were getting a document apostilled, and they used to at one point give us an original seal on the apostille, and all of a sudden they quit doing that. And I'm up on the 12th floor there in the Secretary of State's office, and when we got through and I left, we got on an elevator, and there's a gal standing there, and I'm looking in her folder, and I see an apostille, and it's got the big seal on it. And I'm like, excuse me. I said, did you just get that from upstairs? And she said, yeah, but we'll talk about it when we get down to the ground floor. So we get down to the ground floor. We go over next to the fountain, and we're sitting there. I says, "Okay, so what's going on with this thing?" She said, "Well, I'm involved with this person named Clinton, and she's got a program, and we go around and engage certain individuals, names that are apparently passed on to her, and we make them an offer to buy their certified copy of their birth certificate and sell that, and it goes through the Clinton group. And she offers you, if you do that, $1 million for your birth certificate." And I'm looking at this gal and my buddy, and I said, "Aha, that's a cool deal." And so I said, "So how do we get on the list?" She says, "Well, it's by invitation only." And I said, "Oh, so and who's going to invite me?" She said, "Well, if you're on the list, you will. Otherwise, forget it." So that's just another little piece of this birth certificate thing that most people don't understand. So, and it is, you got 10, you're entitled to 10 certified copies of your birth certificate, by the way. Not one, 10. Same thing with Social Security card if you lose them. And those things are all monetizable instruments under the right circumstances, and that's a long discussion. I'm not even going there, and it's something that has since been killed. So all these things that existed over the course of the last, we'll say, 100 years plus, are all dying on the vine. And so we're going to enter a new era, and the finances and the contract stuff and all is going to be completely different than anything most of the people on this call have ever encountered. So just be aware that there are really good things coming.
Well, most of the people wouldn't have a frame of reference for what we're talking about anyway, and that's what we're trying to do, is give them that frame of reference so they'll understand what has been done in the past and what's theoretically being done about it, right? What's coming. Correct.
Yeah, we want the coming part. That's the most important.
Right, exactly.
So, and I can touch on one little piece of dealing with the identification that we all carry, you know, that driver's license and the passports. We're rapidly approaching an area where each one of us will have the opportunity to make a application to the Secretary of State of our particular state, wherever we might be. And there's an example on this web, on this call, one of the documents that was put there. It's got Nebraska on it. And that instrument, which is not necessarily operating throughout the states, but it is active in at least the state that it was created by, or not created, but by authenticated by. And what this individual did, went in and actually took an example of the ID that they wanted to have certified and apostilled. It's got the big seal of the state of Nebraska on it, and it has the wording dealing with, you're technically, as a sovereign, you're exempt from all commercial stuff. And it's a very interesting identification, and you can look at it. It's on the web, like I told you. And that thing is starting to pick up speed. And I only say that because there are other individuals around the country that are also aware of this. And people are starting to stand up and go into the Secretary of State's office or wherever your state might be and say, "Hey, I want my ID. This is who I am, and I want you to authenticate it." And it's got the state seal, the state flag, the state Secretary of State's office signature, along with your signature. You can add your picture and a thumbprint there if you'd like. All that's, but at the bottom, the most important part of this is there's a little wording across the bottom that says, "This document does not expire unless the party takes allegiance to another sovereignty." That means that your state ID, whatever state you might be in, that's your domicile for the time being until you decide to change it. If you do, and so it's something that all the states are going to be involved in.
So that's huge in a way. You'll now be a citizen of the state, right?
Yep. Well, those that qualify already are. They
Yeah.
just haven't figured out how to go about getting the state to recognize it.
Exactly right. Yeah, there you go. There you go. My bad. Yeah, it's upside down. So, okay, I don't know if you want to talk about the birth certificate and the baby touching the land and all that before getting the footprint and blah, blah, blah. If not, then, that's the next box down. We can skip by that. I think everybody has a pretty good understanding of that anyway, because it's easy to figure that one out, right? All the birth certificates are recorded at the county recorder. Your footprint's on there. Your mom's name's on that birth certificate, by the way, right? And
not your dad.
Exactly. That's weird.
And, by the way, everybody that is part of this system is also considered a vessel, like a boat. And that's why the Navy, the Secretary of the Navy, and the agencies that operate under that are also in complete and total control of you as a vessel. That's why you got hooked up in all these contracts that are designed to monetize numbers for them.
This is where the whole straw man thing comes from. People talk about
it, exactly.
And so you're monetizing that birth certificate. Theoretically, according to this, it gives you if you go down to the bond service, which is the next box down, it gives you a individual jurisdiction to be a worth of $630,000 for each one.
Right.
So that's pretty. And as we've talked before, obviously that number's changed.
Obviously.
Yeah. Right. So. Because this thing was written some years back. But anyway, to cover all this debt that they'd gotten in 1933 and all this future debt that they were expecting, and then that act was done, that's how this was all. This how this all was made up. That the future people would be bond servants, and their birth certificates would be monetized for this amount of money, and that's how they covered. That's how they made up. Well, that's how they what do you want to call it? Made the money out of thin air, right?
Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly out of thin air. That's where that ACR 192 thing came in, and they monetize your signature. Yep, on everything you sign.
There you go.
Plus the hidden contracts, that you have signed that you don't even know where they went. And I'll give you one example. Would include like an application for AAA automobile insurance. That application is monetized.
Yeah,
and, they actually.
To be honest with you, application for nearly everything, right?
Yep, and I'll take you to one more spot. As long as we touched on this, most people are aware of what they call a bearer bond, and it's a funny thing. There was a movie made about this. I don't remember the actor's name, but there was a safe up on the 15th floor or whatever, and they had to get the power system of the city to shut down in order to disengage the locks on that safe. And when they finally did it and the safe door opened, here's all these stacks, and they're all bearer bonds sitting there. Okay,
it was Die Hard.
You might,
it was Die Hard.
Yeah, you might ask the question, well, what the hell do they do with a bearer bond? Well, it's monetized by putting it in a holding system like it was there in a safe, and then they issue numbers against it.
Right.
But where do they get the bearer bond? Where do they get the authority for the bond? That's the people. And I happen to be, I was personally involved in this situation where most people may recognize that there's a PDF process or program that actually you can sign it, and it's used as a lawful signature for authorization for something. Well, that system was designed for this purpose. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the term SES. That's a Senior Executive Service, okay? Those people, there was a list, I don't remember how long it was, but these are all people that have been brought in and made, we'll just say, co-equals to the CEOs, the Chief Executive Officers, in all the major countries, and you could just say across the world. And they're all connected to the banking system. And what would happen is that in any given particular time, the Rothschild group, which I also was connected with, with a very close friend of mine who was the guy that designed the program that can sign and authorize, authenticate your signature across the internet. And here's what they'd do. They'd go to a particular company. I'll use AAA as a good example. They'd get the CEO, who may have been a stand-in, to lock down a certain number of contracts, literal lockdown in a safe holding facility, and hold those documents there in order for that to authorize the clearinghouses to manufacture bearer bonds. And
a bearer bond being an instrument, by the way, that's owned by whoever has possession of it. It's like cash in a way.
Exactly. And all they do with the bearer bond is they would deposit them in a bank, in a safe, and then the bank would issue letters of credit against them. So there was a monster that was created from the inside on this banking system through that HCR 192 that most people don't even have a clue about. I just happen to be personally involved with it. So all I'm telling you is that if you wonder how come there's so many gazillion numbers that they call our debt, which is BS, it's got nothing to do with us, because it's still just a bunch of fictitious paper that was created that they could use to get control over literal everything. And as long as we used the crap, then we were part and parcel with it.
No, any different. I mean, it was just part of the rules, right? And we understood them that way, and we didn't really understand what we were doing. That was unless you woke up to what was really going on. And I was with a major corporation, and with their check system. This is back in the '60s when I first got started with this crap. But about 1980, when I woke up, I'm like, oh crap, man. I'm just going to the bank and I'm taking part in this whole scam that's going on here. So all I did was I put a big stamp on the back of the check before I deposited it, and I put demand and lawful money, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, U.S. Constitution. That negated my agreement. It's just like that other thing we talked about, revoking your election to be something. If you don't understand what I'm saying about this, if you happen to be in a position where you may be involved in utilizing those fictitious notes, fraudulent documents, without objection, that means you agree with it. That includes about everything you do in your life that's commercial, that you're not technically commercialized, but you still do it and you don't object to it. So remember, silence is a very powerful thing when it comes to the law. And if you don't object, that means it's okay. But don't be afraid to object. Do it. Yeah, we need to learn how to object. Right, exactly. Yeah. That's what this is all about, you guys, is teaching you how to get past some of this stuff that you're doing without your knowledge, right?
And that signature with the right, punctuation and the UD on it. If you go look up under duress, it's a very powerful statement, and it's only 2 little letters, and you can make them real small. So as long as you put it there, they can't hold you liable for anything beyond that. I'll give you a good example. You may be a judge in the present system, and you don't realize, but you're exercising Admiralty Maritime, and most likely something that follows right along with the Communist Manifest, which most people may have heard of. But I'll tell you what, if you read the first 10 planks and then the 45 goals that follow that, they've got us into soup. Yeah, boy. We've been there for a long time. And so the judge who's exercising that stuff, I don't care if you want to call it a civil code or a penal code or a admiralty code or whatever you want to call it, civil laws and all this bull, that's all Communist Manifest stuff. You may not know it until you look at the actual definitions under those codes. And there's 10 of them to start with, and you can download that off the internet easy. The 10 communist planks and the 45 goals. If you don't look at those, you're missing a big piece of information that's been in everybody's face. And if you don't understand our real common law and our sovereignty and our rights, our unalienable rights, you're not going to connect them. But if you get an idea about what this, and we're going to try and give all this stuff to you over, a few more classes or whatever, to help you understand the things that you don't want to move into. You've already been there, but maybe it's time to stand up and say no, because that's where we're at right now. It's time to stand up. So you got to know what to say no to before you can say no.
There is that. Now, one of the things that it's interesting you bring this this communist manifest up, because you're aware of this, I'm sure, that was read in the Congressional Record in 1963, right?
Absolutely. And there's a Title 50 statute on it, and a whole bunch of dialogue that's consequences for being involved in any organization. This is the funniest part. Every organization existing right now is involved in one form or another of that Communist Manifest and those 45 goals. Every single one.
It's pitiful. They tried to bring
amazing.
They tried to get forth and fix it as it happened, and were unsuccessful, of course.
Nope. Every time they created a code, the civil codes, the penal codes, the probate codes, all of them, they're all Communist Manifest wording. Every one of them.
I will. I'll give that to Elephant to put in the room there. It's part of the Congressional Record. It's pretty. I mean, all it does is prove that happened and that they were concerned about it at that time in 1963. It didn't go anywhere. Obviously, everybody remembers Kennedy, and that is what it is. But they were trying to get at what we're talking about right now. Back in 1963, guys, that was 60 years ago, right? Am I adding that up right?
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys think this is new, and we're bringing this forth like it's new stuff. It's not. This has been going on for forever, right? So
at least our lifetimes.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so there's only
anybody. I don't know if anybody would be alive at this point that is old enough to have lived before all this stuff started. Because, you're back in like 1913 and so on.
Yeah, right.
So, big stuff. Long time.
All right, so there's only two boxes left in this section. I wanted to see if you had anything to say about that. There's inherent rights, which the president averts, not necessarily heredity, unalienable rights from God that are not lienable. And then you got inalienable rights, which is only one word, only one letter different in the word. The unalienable rights, on the sovereign side, and the inalienable rights on the the subject side. So the rights of the corporate government are inalienable rights that can be leaned against or taken away at any time, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can read it there. It says a little short box. Do you have anything to add on that, Mason? Because, obviously that's the crux of the whole damn thing, really. Oops,
I'll just say I've got a disagreement in the fact that they've joined these two words and separated them at the same time. And the only reason I want to bring this up is because the Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary is probably the premier dictionary in our country that deals with the difference between the English laws and the American laws. And these rights that the founders, they identified them, the unalienable part, in the Declaration of Independence. They didn't use the word inalienable, but there was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of discussion about these two words, and in some instances they wanted to reverse them. And it has to do with the un and the in part. But the fact remains this. The definition, as you find it in Noah Webster's, if you look up these two words separately, you'll find that the word unalienable will take you to the words that are identified in inalienable, which identifies them under unalienable. So these two words are connected. You can call it whatever you want. The fact remains is in our system, all the rights that were secured by that revolution belong to a sovereign class. And there's no word that can change that. I don't care if you use the word in or on, it doesn't matter. The fact remains is as citizens of a state, the sovereignty evolved onto us. And we're in our private capacity as powerful as the King of England privately. Publicly, that's another matter. And you have to contract out of the thing I'm talking about, which is what most people have done without even knowing it. So we don't have we don't have to nitpick and dissect this word on and in when it comes to alienable, because it's God-given, and we exercise it as a matter of our sovereign prerogatives. All you got to do is know what they are and how to exercise them. And it's not. This is going to be one of the easiest parts of this whole thing, when you understand what they are and how easy it is to do just what I'm telling you.
You got to quit signing it away. Well, I mean, it is what it is, right?
That's a fact.
All right, guys. Well, here we are at the end of this section, and it's a good place to stop because we've been on this call for a minute. Elephant, I'm going to you'll put the sections that we talked about today in the room like we did before. I thought that was really cool, by the way, how you did that. And so that will give a good reference for everybody to follow along also. So with that said, I guess we're in a good place to stop, Elephant. So, wrap us up, baby.
Okay. Wrap us up. I guess the next wrap up will probably lead us into the land.
Yeah, we'll find that on this
right.
and we'll go for it. Yep, absolutely.
And the money too.
Well, we'll get there too. Absolutely, they're both on here, so it is what it is.
That sounds like a good plan. That sounds like a good plan for our next installment. Thank you, gentlemen, so much, and I will be sure to get all of the congressional record in the chat and a few of the definitions you touched on, Mason. I took some love notes, so I'll get it all posted in the room. And if there's any questions, I got some feedback. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out to me via DM or at me in the living room or in the Q&A room, and I'll be sure to see any questions or comments. For those who have already asked questions and comments and we haven't yet tackled them, we will get to them. I promise. Just be patient with us. We're trying to walk down a journey here and not take a left when we should keep going.
Well, and let me
thank you everyone for joining us.
One point. The reason we haven't answered some of those questions is it's beyond us yet, and we don't want to skip ahead. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, right? Yeah. Right. No, I get it. Yeah. Some of them are very complex. So
and very good questions, by the way.
If we start answering, right? Yeah. There's some really, really great ones. So I just don't want anyone to think we're ignoring. It's just we're just trying to stay the course and tackle things, but we won't forget you, and we'll get to it when the time is right. So just hold tight, and we will see everyone on the next installment of the Republic Room with Mason and Jester. Good night, everybody.
Good night. See you, Mason.
Good night.
See you, Elephant.
Bye, Mason. Bye.
Bye-bye.